Shabbat Shalom. So, picture it if you will. You're standing in a park, and there in the middle of a field, you see a couple standing there with their dog. Suddenly, one shoots to the left, and the other shoots to the right, leaving the dog behind. What are they doing? You're not familiar with this internet trend. See, you all have better things to do with your time than I do. They are testing their dog. They are testing their dog. They want to see, will the dog run after person number one, or will the dog run after person number two? Because clearly the one that the dog chooses to run after in that split-second decision must be the dog's favorite. And they want to know, who does the dog love most? And this is the way they're going to test it. Good idea? You guys have really never heard of this? Already speaking like a man who's trying to game the test, right? So yes, obviously the best thing to do would be to carry a lot of steak in your pockets and rub it across your hands beforehand. But I don't think in the strictest definition of the test that is allowed. So what are the problems with this test? Those of you who are more scientifically minded. Is this proving anything? And if not, why not? All right, so psychologically speaking, no surprise, don't ask questions you don't want to hear the answer to. So are you really sure you want to find out who the dog likes most? Because it might not be you. And maybe you'd be happier living along with that illusion rather than having it be laid bare for all to see. So definitely, before you even begin to consider the test, you might want to consider that. But if you were considering the test, what are the problems with this test? Greg, I thought I saw your hand. Are we going to say the same? Right. They will follow the food. All right, so we know how to get dogs' affection, which is food. And yet here we are testing their affection without. Therein is one of the underlying problems. Does there mean anything by who the dog chooses to run after at that particular moment? That's not the way dogs show affection. That isn't an accurate gauge of whom the dog prefers. Because dogs prefer the person giving them food. Dogs prefer the person that does whatever their favorite activity is at that moment. In a split second, the dog is just going to run after whomever it seems first. The dog is going to run in whichever direction it looks like the family is going, not noticing that another person ran the opposite direction. The dog will simply be confused because the dog doesn't know it's a test. The dog just is like, what's this game? And then it will play along until it figures out the rules. Because it's just a dog. And honestly, do you need to make the poor animal suffer? Because if somebody were to take umbrage that the dog dared to run after a different person, well, what is that going to be for that dog's relationship with that person back home? Are they going to refuse to feed the dog now? You take care of the dog. He likes you best. I'm not having it. You take the dog for a. Is the dog going to suffer because it made the wrong choice? What is the point of a test if the results don't have any weight? And what is the point of a test when you can't tell what the results even mean? Testing a dog is almost as stupid as testing God, which is yet something that many people will do. How many times has somebody said to themselves, or even out loud, God, give me a sign. I don't know what to do. God, I'm not even sure if you're there. Could you give me some proof that you are there? Give me some evidence that you are there. God, if you really want me to go to synagogue all the time, then I need to win the lottery. And if you don't let me win the lottery, then you must not really want me to go to shul all the time. Ipso facto, QED, I don't have to go to shul all the time. I'm speaking to the wrong group again, but maybe somebody will hear this recording at some point and get the message. We do, whether consciously or subconsciously, test God a lot, which is problematic because the book of Deuteronomy tells us you're not allowed to test God. Literally, it is one of those commandments in the book of Deuteronomy that says, don't test God. And it doesn't mean like don't push your luck with God. It doesn't mean don't try God's patience the way we might use that phrase in English. It means literally do not set up a test for God. None of the things that I just listed would fly if you're actually observing the book of Deuteronomy. But we have a little bit of a conundrum. Were you paying attention during Mark's lovely rendition of the Haftorah? If you didn't understand the Hebrew, did you help yourself to read the English at least? God says, test me in the Haftorah. But he says it about something very particular. In this Haftorah, Shabbat Hagadol, God says, test me regarding the tithe. What are the tithes in Judaism? You don't have to go through all the details. Just give me a rough definition, because it gets a little complicated. But if I got a ballpark, anyone here? 10% of your harvest, right? 10% of what you have grown this year needs to go where? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Some of it is going to go to the Kohanim, spoken like a Kohen, but a portion will also go to the Levites. And on different years within the cycle of tithing, because it's not the same every year, you will also be giving part of that 10% to the poor. So there are tithes for the Kohanim, tithes for the Levites, and tithes to the poor, which are actually all the same. They are tithes to the poor, because you may not know it from the modern world, but the Kohanim were a perpetually impoverished class. The priests, the Levites, were perpetually impoverished because they had no land. They had no harvest from which to give anything to anyone. They were not given a portion of land when we settled the land of Israel, and that meant they were wholly dependent upon the gifts that were brought from other people and upon the tithing system. Without that, they would starve because they had no means to farm for themselves to sustain themselves. I suppose in the worst case scenario, they could hire themselves out as day laborers and become some sort of sharecropper, but by and large, they did not have access to the means of production the way every other group within the ancient world did. So they were poor, as were the other poor people that weren't Kohanim. The tithes were specifically designed to support those who could not support themselves for whatever reason it might be, whether it be because God had said they don't get land, or whether it had been because their harvest had failed, or there was a flood, or there were bandits, or there had been a blight, they had been ill and unable to harvest. Whatever the cause may be, the tithes were there to help those who couldn't help themselves. And Malachi, our prophet in the Haftorah, says God is asking us, begging us to test him on this. And our tradition in the Talmud says, and only this, that this is not blanket permission to test God in counter opinion than Deuteronomy, that this is a special exception to that rule of not testing God. That when we give our tithe, when we help those who need that help, that God says, test me and you will see benefit from it. Well, that begins to sound a little bit like what is called prosperity theology in the modern terminology. This is a very, unfortunately, common and insidious thinking within many religious communities in the 21st century, with the idea that when God loves you, God will shower you with riches. And therefore, if you are showered with riches, we can infer that God loves you. Thank you for the syllogism. All right, that's the logical structure. It's very faulty, but this is how it works. How do we know who are God's elect? Well, God is always talking about blessings in the Bible. Therefore, if you are enjoying blessings, you must be God's elect. If you are not enjoying blessings, well, you need to get in God's good graces. And how do you get into God's good graces, says prosperity theology? Well, it starts with your bank account. What you need to do is invest in your relationship with God, write a whole lot of checks to the reverend that is making this sermon, and then God will know how much you love him. And then you will be showered with rewards. And some of you are smirking, but this is very much taken straight out of the playbook of many modern congregations. That you will be blessed the more you bless that minister with the checks. And that is just obvious. And the fact that the minister has already been blessed and drives a fancier car than any one of the congregants shows you that it works. Because God has blessed him with that luxury sedan. God has blessed him with that private jet. It makes perfect sense, as long as you leave your sense at the door. But it is very tempting to think along these lines. And indeed, it's very tempting to even see what Malachi is saying here, as along this line. That if we do the tithes, dare I say religiously, that we will be rewarded, would seem to imply that when we are enriched, you can infer that we must have been doing it correctly. But that's not what Malachi means. It's not what our tradition understands of why this tithe is a particular exception to the general rule of don't test God. Instead, it is a little bit more mundane. Like I said, the tithing was given to those who were in need. The Kohanim, the Levites, the poor, in the more general sense of that word, all of these people could not take care of themselves financially because of the circumstances they were in. When we tithe, we are making sure they don't starve to death, freeze to death, that they are not disassociated from their land or from their communities, that they are not then put into horrible positions where they are either mistreated, exploited, oppressed, or other problems. The tithe prevents that from happening. It is that, safety net, if you will, for our community. And as such, our tradition believes that there is an inherent payoff in ensuring that that safety net is robust. Because if we don't tithe, if people who are in desperate need are allowed to fall as far as the current economic situation will let them fall, that hurts all of us. We have lost a valued member of our community. We have lost a productive member of our community. We have depressed the output of our community because they are no longer producing as much as they otherwise would. We have fractured our community leaders or teachers in the case of Kohanim that also had that important role. Often we have made people become dispossessed of their property and even displaced, moving not just from our neighborhood, but perhaps even from our city, or throughout many times in Jewish history, even having to leave the country altogether. Well, it sort of turns out in Economics 101 that if you allow people to starve to death, freeze to death, if you make it so that people are going to have to flee their country, if you make it so people will have to work for pennies on the dollar because they are desperate just for a crumb of bread, that doesn't just hurt them. That hurts the entire community, it hurts the entire country, it hurts the entire system. That stopping somebody before they hit rock bottom prevents their descent from pulling us down as well. It's a little self-serving, but it's actually borne out by research as well as thousands of years of empirical data. We have seen that societies that know how to take care of those who need help thrive better than those who do not. That society at large benefits by preventing someone from crashing in an economic death spiral. But it is not a matter of just having kindness in your heart and being generous to them, which you should, and the Torah speaks very passionately about that type of motivation, but it is also about when they go down, they'll take you with them. And if enough of them go down, then the entire business of our community will crash. So better to help them now while we can, so that they will not need assistance sooner, and thus our society will stabilize in that process. So when God says through the prophet Malachi, test me with the tithes, what he is saying is not, test me by bribing me, test me by giving me, God, more sacrifices, test me by doing more of the ritual commandments that only affect you and your own home. God is saying, test me and my ways by seeing the output of when you actually put something in to taking care of the other members of your community. And you'll find that I, God, am not stupid. I know how the world works. I made it. And I know that if you will help those around you, you will benefit more than you're currently anticipating. Because the knee-jerk reaction for humanity, going all the way back through recorded human history, is if somebody's in need, I better make sure I give them nothing. Because if I help them, I'll have less. And God is saying, look, I'm God. Let me tell you, you help others, it's going to pay off dividends. And you don't help them, and it's going to get worse for you too. But unfortunately, historically, we don't listen to God. Historically, we allow our neighbors to go hungry. We allow others to go without a home. We allow people to be deprived of medical treatment, of educational opportunities that could otherwise transform their lives, and in transforming their lives, benefit us all. How many young doctors never make it to medical school because they aren't able to keep up with the academic rigor while also working a full-time job to try and make ends meet? Or maybe they don't even get into college because they are too busy having to help their families, working at jobs after school, not able to get that 4.0 GPA and take all of the advanced courses because they've got to be filling tacos in order to bring a little extra in to give money to their family for rent. How many people could have been brilliant in their career, not only as doctors or scientists, but as artists, as creators, as people who might have brought new business to a community, only to have been crippled by preventable illnesses, or to have had their life savings wiped out while trying to pursue a cure for what they had? This doesn't only rob them of their opportunities, it robs all of us of what they could have been for all of us. Now, should we help people because they're people? Yes. Should we care about others because they are bnei Adam, they are children of humanity, cut from the same mold as us, made from the same dirt as us? Yes. Should we care about people just because God told us to? Absolutely. But the prophet Malachi had seen enough to know that that wasn't apparently sufficient motivation for a large portion of the population. And so he said, test me. Test God. Put more effort into taking others and see what happens. And I think that is still a viable challenge for all of us. Try to take care of others a little more than you currently are. See what benefit it brings to you, not only to them. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.